Alright, so my working title for my thesis is Counter-Hegemonic Globalization as an alternative to the dominant neoliberal model, the Venezuelan case. So I would like to point out that I was asked to present this about 2 days ago, and I'm not quite done. So really the heart of my essay is the analysis of my case study, and that's yet to be done, probably because I have 30 hours of transcribing to do. I'm not really looking forward to that. But. So in any case, globalization, what is it? Globalization can be understood as the closer integration of the countries and peoples of the world, which has been brought about by enormous reduction of cost of transportation and communication, and the breaking down of artificial barriers to the flows of goods, services, capital, knowledge, and peoples across borders. Globalization essentially becomes a set of unequal exchanges in which a certain artifact, condition, entity, or local identity extends its influence beyond its local or national borders, and in doing so develops an ability to designate as local another rival artifact, condition, entity, or identity. This understanding of globalization has formed the basis of my thesis, which investigates how does globalization operate and is it a monolithic concept. Essentially what I argue is that globalization is actually accurately more called globalizations, and that today the hegemonic model of globalization comes under the neoliberal form. So this thesis probes alternative models of globalization, and I argue that counter-hegemonic globalization, as evidenced by the Venezuelan case, serves as both a project and a theory, and will either lead to social emancipation from the systemic repression of capitalism, and can be observed as an alternative model to neoliberalism. So exactly what is counter-hegemonic globalization? Firstly, counter-hegemonic globalization derives from the broader concept of insurgent cosmopolitanism. It consists of transnationally organized resistance against the unequal exchanges produced or intensified by globalized localisms and localized globalisms. This resistance is organized through global and local linkages between social organizations and movements, representing those classes and social groups victimized by hegemonic globalization, and united in concrete struggles against exclusion, subordinate inclusion, destruction of livelihoods and ecological destruction, political oppression, or cultural suppression. Secondly, the project or theory of counter-hegemonic globalization arose of what Boaventura de Sousa Santos sees the epistemological crisis of the social sciences. So counter-hegemonic globalization is an emerging alternative consisting of transnational networks and alliances among social movements, social struggles, and non-governmental organizations. It emerges as an emancipatory alternative recently as much of Latin American interest is transitioning towards left-leaning governments. It remains largely ignored by corporate media that typically represent more center right-wing interests in the areas. Nevertheless, its global relevance is increasing, as the goals of the project are to create global awareness of issues via transnational networks. So specifically what this thesis looks at is counter-hegemonic globalization consists of 3 primary pillars. These pillars are transnational consumer and labor networks, transnational advocacy networks, the labor movement and the emphasis on the right to organize, and all these must operate in conjunction with participatory democracy to investigate whether or not counter-hegemonic globalization is present within a given area. So theoretically, I ground much of my work in Gramscian analysis with a bit of Marxism, but I look at 4 other theories as well, which are neoliberalism, globalizations, hegemony, and of course counter-hegemonic globalization. And the counter-hegemonic globalization theory itself is grounded in Peter Evans and Boaventura de Sousa Santos. So Venezuela. The parameters of this presentation don't really let me go into the historical conditions of Venezuela that I believe have created an environment conducive to foster counter-hegemonic globalization. However, there are multiple reasons as to why Venezuela was chosen, and more specifically in my case study of Coro. Most notably, the immense structural shift the country has undergone since 1998, and Coro since 2004 to pick one of the most highly mobilized communities, where a large majority are fighting for counter-hegemony in really ever since. So my research for this thesis is largely ethnographically based, but really just the beginning of an ethnography. I conducted around 20 interviews, 2 focus groups, participant observation, and document collection. I do have yet to conclude anything specific on my case study, so I'll refer this till further or leave it open to any questions. Interviews were conducted with local and national politicians, local English and politics teachers, workers in cooperatives, workers in the informal economy, workers in formal capital systems, store owners, local activists, and most importantly, about half were pro-Chavez and half were staunchly anti-Chavez, as the country is largely divided between those 2 sides. It is clear that as the theory postulates the mechanisms within which neoliberal globalization operates are utilized within counter-hegemonic globalization in the promotion of awareness. These mechanisms of course take the form of transnational linkages, highly utilizing technology, and specifically the internet. Interestingly enough, Coro has recently, through participatory budgeting, planned to institute unlimited free Wi-Fi to the entire municipality. One of the most striking things about Coro was the role of the informal economy and informality in general. The informals are numerous and can be found in every busy corner of the town. The informality evidence in the community draws an interesting parallel with my thesis. Although hopeful, I had not expected to find all 4 pillars of counter-hegemonic globalization. But what I did find was 3 of the 4, excluding transnational consumer and labor networks. But the informal nature of all the pillars I researched parallels with the transitional stage of the Bolivarian Revolution, the revolution Venezuela is undergoing. Just as the capitalist system arguably took 500 years to develop to its current stage, Venezuelans understand that their project towards 21st century socialism is going to be temporarily uncertain, but certainly long. I was continually told, interestingly enough, hearing direct quotes by Gramsci from Venezuelans, that social emancipation is the goal, and reconstituting consciousness is pivotal to the seemingly enduring process.
I want to get the people who ran your interviews when I go back down to Mexico. You did a lot. Yeah, I know. That was some impressive research in a short time. I guess I'm curious because I think the definitions of counter-hegemonic globalization differ slightly between Evans and Santos. I can never say. So why is because participatory democracy is not so much an important part of Evans' definition? Why are you using participatory democracy as such a central component to counter-hegemonic globalization in your thesis,
Sure.
in your understanding of it?
My thesis is mostly grounded in Santos's work, so I do rely a bit more on his, but I do use Evans's transnational consumer labor networks, advocacy networks, and labor movement. I think participatory democracy is integral to the thesis itself and to the Venezuelan process itself. As in the case study itself, one of the most interesting things was seeing the communal councils in the town, which are little micro democracies. Venezuela, or the municipality of Torres, which is where we're situated, has 182,000 people. And within that area, there's about 400, a little bit over 400 communal councils, and as the population grows, they increasingly put more in, depending on the necessity. But anyway, as I saw it, counter-hegemonic globalization, and given the definition that I saw, or that I used anyway, participatory democracy was what enabled them to situate or to create solidarity for the movement. So that's what I saw as the most important part, was the creation of solidarity through that participatory democracy and popular power.